The Earth is alive. Biodiversity is the diversity of life in all its forms and at all levels of organization. Terrestrial biodiversity, coastal and marine biodiversity. There are three levels of biodiversity. Habitat diversity is the distribution and abundance of habitats in a given geographical space. Species diversity is the variety of species within a given context. Genetic diversity is the variation of genes within different individuals of the same species. But this is not it. There are more dimensions to the concept of biodiversity that we need to understand. We not only need to know how many types of habitats, species and varieties are present in an area, but also how these habitats and species or varieties are arranged over space or over time. Due to all these species living on a variety of habitats, the ecosystems are beaming with activity, and a diversity of functions are being carried out by each species or a combination of species such as pollination, fish breeding, as well as the interactions of species within their physical environment, such as water purification. This interdependent interaction between species and the environment is defined as an ecosystem. Ecosystems are a circle of life that provides benefits to humans. These benefits are known as ecosystem services. We receive these benefits from the ecosystems in a variety of ways, as food, wood, medicines, fresh water. Ecosystems help in air and water purification, climate regulation, carbon sequestration, and reducing the risk from disasters such as floods and storm surges. There are also non-material benefits we obtain from ecosystems through spiritual enrichment, cognitive development, reflection, recreation, and aesthetic experiences. What keeps the ecosystems in a state that we can get continuous ecosystem services that are necessary for our lives? It is the diversity of habitats, species, and genes that is the basis of all the benefits we receive from the ecosystems. While the relationship of biodiversity and ecosystem services is universal, when it comes to terrestrial, coastal, and marine ecosystems, there are some differences in these ecosystems that need to be understood to maintain the ecosystem services. Marine and terrestrial ecosystems are different in a way that the terrestrial ecosystems have clear boundaries, but it is not possible to demarcate marine areas. The diversity of coastal and marine ecosystems is enormous. Mangroves, tidal mudflats, lagoons, estuaries, sandy beaches, rocky shores, and seagrasses and corals. Nearly 250 million people live within 50 kilometers of the coastline in India and are dependent on the rich coastal and marine resources for their livelihood and overall well-being. So is it available to us forever? No, it is not. Ecosystem services are not infinite or unlimited. According to the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment of 2005, about 60% of the ecosystem services are being degraded or used unsustainably. The consequences of the loss of ecosystem services have a far-reaching and sometimes irreversible negative impact on the human lives, livelihoods, and overall well-being. So what is causing so much damage to the biodiversity and the ecosystem services that are the very foundation of our existence? Let's have a look for the reasons of loss of biodiversity and ecosystem services. Loss of habitat is one of the key reasons. Loss of structural and functional biodiversity because of habitat loss, fragmentation, and degradation impairs their ability to continue self-maintenance and in the long term their ability to provide ecosystem services. Overfishing, which means harvesting more fish than what the habitat regenerates, is one of the most important reasons of marine biodiversity loss. Impacts on the seafloor can result from intense use of trawlers and other gears and can change the seafloor structure, microhabitats, and benthic fauna. Tourism is a double-edged activity. It has the potential to contribute in a positive manner to socio-economic achievements but at the same time, its fast and sometimes uncontrolled growth can be the major cause of degradation for the environment and loss of local identity and traditional cultures. Alien invasive species are alien species that invade new habitat. Invasive alien species are intentionally or unintentionally introduced, either in the form of deliberate introduction of a species without adequate information about the introduced species and the host ecosystem, or accidental introduction such as via ballast water. Over 80% of the world's 232 marine ecoregions have reported presence of invasive species, which is the second most significant cause of biodiversity loss on a global scale. More than 80% of all marine pollution originates from land-based sources, which are primarily industrial, agricultural, or urban. The pollution in all its forms, air, water, chemical, sewage, and municipal solid wastes, ultimately enters the ocean through water channels. Agricultural practices, coastal tourism, port and harbour developments, damming of rivers, urban development and construction, mining, fisheries, aquaculture and manufacturing, among others, are all sources of marine pollution, threatening coastal and marine habitats. The occurrence of marine and coastal hypoxic areas or dead zones has been increasing at a massive rate in recent years. Solid materials, typically waste that have found their way to the marine environment, are called marine debris. Plastic and synthetic materials are the most common types of such debris and cause the most problems for marine animals and birds. At least 267 species are known to have suffered from entanglement or ingestion of marine debris, including seabirds, turtles, seals, sea lions, whales, and fish. Climate change is likely to become one of the most significant drivers of biodiversity loss by the end of the century. It will create new hazards such as frequent and intense glacier recession, sea level rise, and extreme weather events never seen before. Coastal squeeze is a term used to describe what happens to the coastal habitats that are trapped between a fixed landward boundary such as a seawall and the rising sea level or increased storminess. These seawalls confine the wave energy and intensify the erosion by concentrating the sediment transport process in an increasingly narrow zone. Eventually, the beach disappears, leaving the seawall directly exposed to the full force of the waves, and wherever the seawall is not present in the zone, the water enters the cities, leading to urban flooding situations. So what can be done about it? How can we ensure that the coastal and marine biodiversity remains protected and we continue to receive the benefits from these ecosystems for our livelihoods? Reducing the pollution to the sea is the biggest and foremost action that we should take. Declaring areas dedicated for coastal and marine biodiversity conservation is another important solution. MPAs protect key ecosystems such as coral reefs. Not only do they act as safe breeding ground for fish, but they can also generate tourism, which in turn brings jobs. Creating more community-managed MPAs would enhance the flow of benefits to local people. Involving the local communities in the management of MPAs could help generate sustainable livelihoods through revenue from fishing and tourism. A large number of treaties and policies are in place for conserving coastal and marine biodiversity. There is a need for awareness to bring about the desired change. Media has a great power to create awareness as well as educate the masses on crucial issues, but so far they seem to have been missing the point. With a change in perspective, a lot can be achieved. If viewers and readers of news information can be made to see the connect between coastal and marine issues and themselves, they will identify and recognize the problem and contribute to fixing those issues. With the joint efforts of all stakeholders, the fine balance of ecosystems will be restored, and we can ensure a supply of ecosystem services. With a collective effort, much can be achieved.